So that, I think, as far as the environment is concerned, from a waste perspective, is one of the biggest things that really irritates us on the boat.
Hey, welcome to the Green Boater Podcast. In today's episode, we are going to be connecting with Marianne in the UK. She's going to share with us her firsthand experience about eco-friendly boating on the canals in the UK. Let's get at it. You are the very first person I have ever talked to and met who has been on a canal boat.
Oh.
How in the world did you get involved in being on a canal boat?
I've not long been with my partner, Peter. He wanted to book a holiday, and he'd been on a couple of holidays before that on narrowboats and loved it. And he thought, well, let's book something up for he and I to go away. So we went on this holiday, and once I started looking at narrowboats, I was really enthralled by them. And I thought, is there any way I could actually buy one? And there wasn't, of course. You know, they're not as cheap as might like to think. But we went on this holiday, and I thought, well, if we can survive a week in close proximity, then he and I can stay the distance, because we were very early on in our relationship then. And it was just amazing. The weather was awful, but it didn't matter. It was just being together, being on a boat, cruising. I saw my first heron take flight from the towpath. The towpath, incidentally, is the pathway that runs along the side of the canal. For those of you who don't know. And it's called the towpath because it used to have horses towing the boats along before the boats had engines. They were called butties. And
So when we're talking about narrowboats or canal boats, is that the right term, narrowboats?
It is, narrowboats, yeah.
These are not boats that you find out in the English Channel or on the Thames necessarily. They do go on the Thames. They can go on the Thames. They can travel rivers, but they don't usually go out into open water. So they're meant to navigate these canals, which
Yes, they are.
Which I understand traverse throughout the UK. Where can you go in the UK on these canals?
You can go pretty much the length and breadth of England and some of Wales. There are certain networks that are not connected anymore to the main canal network. So there are canals in Norfolk, for instance, and then it goes up north, but it doesn't reach Scotland.
Okay.
But it does go into Wales, and you can get into Wales that way. That's quite a tourist attraction, actually, because there is an aqueduct there called the Pontysilty Aqueduct, which is a huge structure that takes narrowboats across, and they have tour boats that just do that journey across.
The type of people who are on these boats, are they part-timers? Are they liveaboards? You said they could be some tourists who hire a boat.
Hire boaters take all forms. They're couples. You can't usually hire a boat if you are on your own because it's not safe to do so. You do get solo boaters, but they are people who own their own boats who've had experience of the canals. But if you're new to boating, you have to hire as a couple or more. You can hire a boat for anything up to 2 weeks, maybe a month. There are long-term hires that you can take. The other sorts of boaters you get are liveaboards, which is what my partner Peter does. He lives on his boat 24/7, and he is something called a continuous cruiser. That means he does not have a home mooring. Without a home mooring, you have to follow the rules of the canal as to how long you can stay in any one place. The maximum is 2 weeks, and then you have to move on. And sometimes the limit is only 24 or 48 hours, so that's probably the minimum to stay in any one place. You then get people who own boats, and they moor them in marinas, and they may go to the marina and collect their boat and go out for weekends or for weeks at a time. A lot of marinas won't let boaters live on their boats. You can moor your boat there, but you can't live on it. Age range is anything from babies to the more mature of us who are on the boat. And I think really it's as long as your health is with you, you can stay on a boat. We've encountered a lot of people who have retired and who've been on the boats 15, 20 years, and they're still cruising and they're still well. And that is absolutely great. And I hope that I'll be one of them at some point with my health still intact. You can get boaters who have started young families. There's a vlogger that I follow called Holly the Cafe Boat. They just had an adorable little baby who's, I think, about 2 or 3 months old now, called William. And I love following their stories. So there are families on the boats. And, if you can cope with life on a narrowboat, having a family there is great. The history of the narrowboats is that families of 6, 8 people or more used to live on the boats and work. There's a huge history associated with narrowboats, but the leisure industry is what's taking over now. And there are still working boats on the canals, but it's mostly leisure now, I believe.
So if an experienced boater, let's say myself, I'm an experienced boater, but not on canal boats. If I came to the UK and wanted to hire a boat, would I qualify to take the boat myself after some instruction? Or do I have to get a license, or must I hire a boat with an experienced captain?
I'm smiling because there is no prerequisite to hiring a narrowboat. None whatsoever.
You could just go down to the marina, put your cash down, buy one, and trundle off.
Well, if you're buying a boat, that is exactly what you do. You just say, that's the boat I want. You have the survey done, you pay your money, and you're on your own. And if you're a single-handed boater, that's what you can do. As a hire boater, like I said, you need to have 2 people, but you do not have to have a license or any sort of formal training to maneuver a boat. But the hire company will actually give you some information, some training, not very extensive. It might just be half an hour to an hour, telling you about the steering, how to maintain the boat while you've got it, where the facilities are, etc. And then they let you go.
When it comes to living on a narrowboat, like it is on land, people are now more and more concerned about the environment. What are some of the things that you see as issues when it comes to caring for the environment and living on a narrowboat?
The main issue that we have is that we are very aware of recycling. We gather together our bottles, our plastics, and our cardboard. The CRT, which is the Canal and River Trust, who manage the canal system, or a large part of the canal system here in England and Wales, they have rubbish points, waste points where you can take your waste. But we're finding more and more that they are not sorting the rubbish at that point. So even though we sort the rubbish on the boat, when we take it to the recycling or to the waste bins, it all goes into the one container. And I don't believe it's sorted. Now, there is a reason for that, and it comes down to us as people. CRT used to offer separate bins for these things, and then either boaters or people from the local community or people in motorhomes or whatever put rubbish in all of them and didn't actually segregate it and sort it. So if everything was getting mixed, then why should the CRT actually provide different bins if they can't actually just use it and dispose of it as it should be? If all the bins have everything in it, then somebody's got to sort through it, and that isn't going to happen. So that, I think, as far as the environment is concerned, from a waste perspective, is one of the biggest things that really irritates us on the boat. When I go onto the boat, I try and make choices as to what we shop for and how much plastic we bring onto the boat. And if we do have a lot of things that we can't recycle, then because I'm only part-time and I have a vehicle, I can take it home with me and put it into my recycling bins on the land. A lot of supermarkets have positioned their stores and their car parks along the canals. So there are mooring points near supermarkets, and a lot of supermarkets have recycling points, recycling centres. So that's another place where boaters can offload their recycling. And if we're very lucky, it is actually segregated into different materials.
Yeah. As you've been on canals and you've seen them, are they polluted? Do you see garbage floating in there?
I would say the majority of boaters and canal users are eco-friendly. If you live on a boat, you don't want to be cruising your boat through rubbish. So I think most boaters are very environmentally aware, I would say. But the canal is open for anyone to use. It's encouraged. It's good for your health and well-being to be close to water. And in the last couple of years, they've been promoting that for the well-being. So you get everybody using the canal for cycling, for walking, for jogging, for using it as a means from getting to A to B, to picnic points, etc. And they all might use plastic bottles for water, cans of drink, crisp packets. And if they're not all aware or educated as to the use, the disposal of this rubbish, it ends up in the canal.
But another issue in terms of waste, which is probably common as well, is what happens to human waste?
Various methods of disposing of it. One is called a pump out system, and they have pump out stations up and down the canal network. It's charged, so you pay for it. You can also go into a marina that might offer that service, and basically it's a huge hose that connects to your boat and then to a waste, and then it's pumped out either through suction or vacuum or whatever. There's also another type of disposal called cassette, which we have LSAN points up and down the canal. These are more prominent. These are free to use. And basically they are funnels, stainless steel funnels, where you carry your cassette of human waste and you pour it into this receptacle that it then goes down into the sewage system. And then they have a water hose for cleaning out the inside of your cassette and for rinsing out the surrounding container.
So it's like a holding tank, a mini holding tank that once it's full, you take it off the boat and dump it.
Yes, exactly. And it lasts, depending on how many people are using it, it lasts sort of 5 to 7 to 10 days, depending on usage. So that's what we have on our narrowboat is a cassette. And the beauty of the cassette is that, one, it's free to actually dispose of the waste. 2, it's portable. So even if we're not near an LSAN point, if I'm there with the car, we put it into the boot of the car and we can transport it to the nearest LSAN point and dispose of it that way. Okay. And 3, it's a very practical way of doing it, of disposing of the rubbish. Of the waste, I should say. The third type that I know of is a composting toilet. And I don't know too much about that, but there are a lot of YouTubers that favor composting toilets.
What are the rules on a canal? Are you allowed to dump raw sewage into a canal?
No.
Yeah, and if you're caught, there's a fine.
I'm pretty sure there are fines, yeah, but who's going to catch you? That's the thing. Yeah. So no, raw sewage in the canal is a definite no-no. It really damages the environment for the creatures in there. Grey water goes directly into the canal. We tend to use eco-friendly soaps and detergents so that when it does go into the canal, it can either be eaten or by fish that are there. Yeah. Mostly when it comes to laundry, although we have a washing machine on board, when Peter's cruising, if the town that we're going through has a public laundrette, he will take his laundry to the laundrette to use it there rather than doing the laundry on the boat. And when I'm there, I take my laundry back home and do it in my house.
It sounds like the canal boating experience and the people who are on it are already far along in terms of their understanding of the environment and the lifestyle that a canal boat has, as it says on your channel. Like, dream big and live small. That's brilliant.
Absolutely. And the changes that we've made on the boat, such as looking for products that aren't wrapped in single-use plastics and buying plastic bottles and things, I'm trying to implement that on the land in my home as well. And if I go to the supermarket to buy a cucumber, I try and look for one that's not wrapped, but do you know that you can't get them unless they're wrapped? It's a cucumber, when all said and done, why wrap it? Yeah. So bananas, apples, whatever, I will buy them unwrapped. And I also buy organically wherever I can. I get an organic food box delivered. And even through that, they've converted all their plastic to compostable plastic. Now, if they can do it, I do not understand why supermarkets can't do that, so that the likes of boaters and mobile homeowners don't have to worry about what they're buying.
Marianne, thank you so much for taking the time and explaining to those of us who know nothing about canal boating. And I must say, I'm intrigued. And I think the next time I come over to the UK, I might just take a more serious look at canal boating and enjoy the benefits of being on a canal. That'll be wonderful. Thank you so much.
It's been my pleasure, Bruno. And I will say to you, if you decide to go for a holiday on a narrowboat, my experience of being on the water is you may be on there for a week, but when you get off the boat, it feels like 2 weeks. So that is value for money.
Where can people find out more about you and about your life and story on a narrowboat?
They can follow me on my YouTube channel, which is called Part-Time Boater. And they can also find me on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. And it's all under the same name of Part-Time Boater.
Marianne, it's been wonderful talking to you about what it's like to live and be on a narrowboat on the canals.
Thank you, Bruno.